Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
Don't miss Thursdays with Saltwater Experience, brought to you by Golden Boat Lifts, every Thursday night from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.
Hey folks, we're back with another weekly update. And Clay and I have some pretty cool stuff to talk about. And we both have deer in the freezer, so that's cool. And and it was actually, I'll tell my story because it was my deer first. Mm-hmm. I shot a deer, and it was close. I went out, I sat all day waiting for a buck, started questioning myself, and then when the opportunity finally did present itself, it was a doe. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I was expecting to stroll through there, but it didn't matter. At that point, I had hunted all day long and didn't see anything other than one doe, and she was a nice, fairly fat doe, and I took her at 25 yards. But, caveat, I dropped down to lower my position because there was a branch in front of me, because on public land, and this is the one thing that kind of bugs me, but I can see why, because some people would go to the extreme, is you can't cut limbs or even branches out of your way and trim little shot lanes. So there was a branch in front of me, and I had to duck down where she was at. I ducked down, and when I did, I must have canted my bow, and my shot was kind of far back. And I kind of knew that when I shot, so I waited a little while before I got down. And I got down and looked. I could not find my arrow in the dark. It was tall grass. I could not find a single drop of blood. And at that point, knowing what I knew and knowing that I probably pulled my shot, the ethical and the right thing to do, as hard as it is sometimes to not look for that animal, is to back out. And so I backed out. But before I backed out, I also fell in the creek and got completely sopping wet.
I didn't hear that part.
All of my gear. I wasn't wearing tall rubber boots. I was wearing my regular boots. I didn't have gaiters on. So once again, I got wet, folks. And it was cold that night. And so I hiked out, went home, didn't sleep much that night, got up in the morning and hunted the same area in hopes that I would either see her or, you know, an amazing buck. Not that I wouldn't still look for the doe, but I didn't see anything. And so by first light, when it was actual light and the gray light had faded and was gone, I got down and looked. I located my arrow. Didn't find hardly any blood on it, but there was a little bit of brown matter, and I knew that I did, in fact, hit her in the stomach. Mm-hmm. And that was disheartening because I knew there wouldn't be much blood at that point or much to trail off of. And she had been down for, it would have been probably 9 hours at that point, 10 hours. So a decent amount of time. And so I scoured the hedgerow / honeysuckle thicket that she ran into and looked and didn't see anything. And at this point, I searched for a while. Didn't see anything at all, no blood, kept back trailing. And I decided I would come back out, but I had to leave because I couldn't go through all the fields. I didn't want to screw up the pheasant hunters. But right before I left that morning, I heard something get up and stumble and then take off running. And I was like, that might be my deer, but I have no idea where or what direction it went. And I knew I couldn't get a tracker dog. This is the worst thing about having a friend that has a tracker dog, a deer tracking dog, is knowing that when I hunt public land, you cannot use a tracking dog during the daylight hours. it has to be at night when no one else is hunting. And knowing that my friend has a very busy tracking dog that during the day recovers up to 5 to 7 deer sometimes, that's a lot of running, and you can't run your dog to death. So I didn't bother calling him. So that next morning as I'm leaving, somewhat discouraged, still have faith that I'm going to go out after the pheasant hunters leave the fields, and I'm going to scour the fields and look for this deer. That was my plan. And as I'm walking out, one of the pheasant hunters, I'm talking to them, and he says, well, just give me your number, and if my dog or we find it, I'll give you a call. I said, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. That really helps ease my burden a little bit of how I can't find this deer. And so I go home, do a few things, and it's like an hour and a half later. At this point, it's almost noon, and I get a phone call. Hey, we found your deer. And I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, it's over in one of the thickets from where you were telling me. It doesn't seem like it's that far from where it ran and you shot it. So he went and drug it out onto the trail from the field that it was in. And I went and threw back on my orange and went out and recovered that deer. And it only went about 200, maybe 250 yards from where I actually shot it.
Wow.
But if I would have got down and pushed that deer, it could have went a mile. If I would have went and looked for it, it could have went a mile. It's happened before. I mean, not with me, but other people that have pushed. And it's like, the biggest takeaway is, if you don't know what you did, just back. It's so hard to back out because you don't want to lose that animal. You don't want to do anything. But if you give them time, you're going to find it's going to die anyway. Might as well let it die close to where you shot it. And I've heard that so many times, and it's so hard to do. And throughout the entire sleepless night that I had, it was super tough to do that. But in the end, even though I didn't find it, it was very close, and those pheasant hunters found it for me, and I'm super grateful for that.
And didn't you say that it was still warm when you found it?
It had just, rigor mortis had just set in.
Okay.
So it probably died when I kicked it up, and then, by the 3.5, 4 hours, 9 o'clock is when I left, whatever. It set into rigor mortis at that point. So it probably did, yes, get up and run. It was probably the deer I heard get up and run, and it was his final run. But if I had no direction or even an inclination of where it actually went, because it was so thick in there, I didn't even, I couldn't see anything or hear like where it went.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big doe then?
Decent doe. A lot of fat on her. Probably corn fat, Clay. Not what you would like. But here's the other thing that I thought of when you say you don't like the corn. I bet you it's not even necessarily the meat itself. It's the fat.
Yeah, but I don't leave. I mean,
I don't leave wild game fat on. I don't like it.
Well, I actually don't think it tastes bad. It's just that if you don't get it down the gullet, piping hot, then you got wax throat, and wax mouth. No,
but I'm saying the corn versus the non-corn. One that eats off of ag and one that doesn't. I don't know necessarily if it would taste that much different if it was just the meat versus, because it's not like the meat has marbling in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I definitely do notice a major difference in my opinion. Like I said, almost every year, somebody from Southern Michigan gives me venison. And
do they give you like a really old, musky old buck or something too? Is that why they give it away? I'm just
no,
you know what I mean?
Because you get a lot of people, and this is not me or you, but there's a lot of people who say the word gamey in my life, and I can't even fathom it. Deer meat is like seriously so good,
Yes, I agree with that.
And so like, but you often do hear people say, oh, venison is so gamey. And it's like
the one thing I'm sad about, Clay, is I didn't get to recover the tenderloins, the inside loins.
Oh.
Because I got shot her, and so all of her stomach juices were like eating it
Yuck.
all night, but everything else was fully recovered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of sad.
Yeah.
That's my
We
favorite.
have the. That's your favorite.
Oh, butter. I eat them that night. Like I eat them fresh from the deer. If it's not that night, it's the next day, and it's in a pan with like real butter. I'm talking stuff that's like gold from being grass fed.
Yeah.
Stuff that doesn't hardly brown in the pan, right? Because some butter, especially like some store bought butter, is just like, ugh. It turns brown right away, super white looking, like it doesn't look natural. Anyway,
Yep.
some good butter in a pan, and then throw some like thyme in there, and just let that go, and like spoon it over them, and just a couple minutes, still nice and medium rare, tender. And just eat them up.
Yeah.
Delicious. Salt and pepper.
Yeah, I think they're really tasty too. But honestly, just all of the venison tastes so good.
I think
to
maybe
me.
though it's just like because it's like cementing the kill. Like that's the first feast of the deer. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah. Do you eat
Yeah.
your heart? Did you eat your heart?
Didn't eat it yet. No, I actually my kids really love it, and my older two kids I only have every other week.
Mm-hmm.
So I saved it for when they come back.
Nice.
Because they like it. Plus, heart's got a lot of good nutrients in it, CoQ10, things like that. So I don't know. I like to share the organs with my children.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your deer.
My deer was another big fat doe. I killed the matriarch of a big group of probably 8 does.
Very nice.
I was just stalking this public land by my house, only 4 miles away, so like ultra local to my home.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I had seen tons of action in this field, and so I stalked down this kind of wide pathway. Like not, this is a nature preserve that has zero trails in it at all. They like, for some reason, the sign up front says that they don't want to put trails through it, so it's just completely wild.
I like it.
So I was stalking really, really, really slowly down this kind of wide path, and I come around this bend, and there's an open field, and I'm like, oh crap, like I kind of like jut out into the opening, and there before me are like 8 deer, and there's like a pine tree, like a white pine tree on my left hand side that's like partially obscuring me, but I see like 8 deer, and they are like right there, like 30 yards away, and the big matriarch doe, of the group, she comes up and starts looking at me and hoof stomping, and
Mm-hmm.
and I was like legitimately just like a statue, just stood there. I had one foot like partially off the ground because I was in mid step when I noticed them, and I stayed in that position for literally 15 minutes, like at least.
So did you know when she's stomping her foot, there's what's called an interdigital gland
Uh-huh.
that releases certain pheromone smells,
Uh-huh.
and it releases a danger smell when she's stomping her foot, so that the
Hmm.
other deer can actually smell that, so it puts them on alert.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. It was actually like, aside from, like I had game face on, right? Like I was like, dude, I'm not gonna move,
Hmm.
Um, and but in my head, I'm like sitting there and I'm thinking, this is the craziest encounter I've ever had. These things are very beautiful. Like it was really like cool to just see, like she walked up, like the wind was blowing in my direction. So there was like no way she was gonna smell me, right? Um, but she probably walked up 15, 20 feet away from me.
And then you
And
just blasted her.
no. That I sat there and didn't make a move, because if I had moved, she would have ran immediately, and everybody would have ran with her,
You don't
right?
think you could have blasted her before she ran though?
No. I didn't
All
want to
right.
try that.
Okay.
So I sat there, I sat there, and I just patiently waited. And then finally, she gave up, and she let her guard down, walked back out into the field, um, and I was able to kind of like move forward like a few paces, like real slowly, and then it hasn't. I haven't done this in the past, but this year I really wanted to protect my ears. So I was
Lame.
able, so I was even able to lower my ear protection. I was able to get on one knee and get on my shooting stick, and then like I said, I picked her because she was the biggest one,
So how far
and
was she then?
40 yards by the time I shot her.
Did you range it, or how do you know?
I just judged it, like if I was like I always think of it like kind of like football field lengths, like they
Hmm.
go like there's 10 yards, 10
Yeah,
yards,
yeah,
10
I
yards,
get it. I'm just
and
always curious.
no, I did not. I don't have a rangefinder. And yeah, I shot her, and I think maybe I may have like jerked the trigger a tiny bit
Hmm.
because I was aiming for the heart, but I ended up hitting her. It was like a double lung slash like lower spine, or like
So,
so it went up a few inches from where I shot.
okay. So,
So, but
so
I
you,
did end up.
if it was a few inches from the heart, it would be like shoulder.
I mean, I'm talking straight up.
Yeah,
Like yeah. So
yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. Up maybe like up and back or
If it
something.
was back, it would be double lung, and that's actually
Yeah.
double lunging them is the best possible scenario that you could do because it's a way bigger target if you think about it. The
Oh yeah.
lungs are a way bigger target than the heart, which is
Yeah.
maybe 4 inches. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's a way better shot. Granted, with a bullet, you can actually not even hit them in the heart, and the percussion, the shock wave of the bullet as it's going through the wound channel,
Yeah.
that shock wave will actually stop the heart. The shock wave will hit the heart and it will stop the rhythm completely, killing
No
it.
way.
Yeah.
Well, but it knocked down right on the spot where I
Mhm.
shot it, and just like you said, um, I actually all the other deer ran away, and then I gave it a minute, and then I was like, well, surely it's dead by now, and I got up and I started walking towards it. And it was like just a couple of minutes later, and it started like kicking its legs,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, and I backed off because exactly what you said. I did not want it to like get up and run.
You could have put another
But
shot at it. There's nothing wrong with
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
wrong
no,
with wasting another bullet to ensure that that animal is completely down. Same thing with
yeah,
hunters. That's the biggest thing. I was talking to a buddy the other day, and a guy his dad hunted with, knew whatever, or had permission to hunt the same property his dad was hunting. He shot a really big deer, like a
hmm
180-inch deer,
hmm
and proceeded, because the deer dropped down, proceeded to film it as it was on the ground thrashing with his phone, film it, rather
hmm
than put another arrow in it. And guess what happened? That deer
What?
dropped down, thrashed on the ground for a little bit, got back up and ran.
Oh my God.
Never found it. Went on the neighbor's property. The neighbor said, no, you don't have permission to go get it. It's still alive.
Oh my God.
Had it on camera. The neighbor's like, well, now it's going to hang out on my property and I'm going to kill it.
Oh my God.
But the moral of the story there is don't be a dumbass and pick up your phone and start
Mhm.
filming.
Yeah.
Put another bullet in it. Put another
Or-
arrow in it. If
Yeah.
it's down on the ground, what are you going to hurt? Are you going to waste meat? No,
Mhm.
not really. Not if you're hitting it in the lungs or the vitals like you should have done the first time. No
Mhm.
offense. Not saying you did or didn't. But a lot
Yeah.
of people, they think a deer is down, and this happens. And I was just talking to somebody who tracks a lot of deer. You actually hit them in between the spine, like not in the spine, but in
Mhm.
between the spine and like the body cavity itself.
Mhm.
And that initial shock puts them in a temporary paralysis.
Okay.
So they drop down and they bed there for a minute until like it's like when you hit your elbow or something, right? And you get that numb sensation. You don't want to move it and you can't move it for a little while, but then you do and everything's fine. Well, as soon as that deer realizes that it has its senses back, it'll get up and it'll run off.
Oh, man.
But so, I mean, just think about it. People shoot a deer. They're like, yeah, I got it. He's down. But it's not down. It's temporarily down. If you can see the deer, the biggest and best thing you could do so you don't lose that animal is put another one in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
A follow-up.
Yeah, but like, I guess I've only ever shot 4 deer now, and 2 with gun and 2 with the crossbow, my French
warbow.
And
your handicap.
Yeah, my
handicap bow.
My handicap bow. But with the rifle, the first deer I shot, it was with the rifle, and that was instantaneously down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that was like ended up being like a shoulder / like neck shot, like kind of.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I do, and I fully acknowledge this. You know, like I am not the best marksman as far as far as far as like.
Well, it's just the lazy eye. It's not your fault. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not the best marksman in that, like, if I don't have something, like when I'm squirrel hunting, I can hit them like right in the head, right? But it's like I'll put the 22 up against a tree, and
Okay.
I'll really steady it, right? You know, I always like to find a tree to steady it up against. I'm just not that great at like freehand shooting, you know.
It's just you got to work on it. There's no
Yeah,
unless you get that muscle memory and you get a lot of it has to do with how you tighten and draw, and you want to pull it super tight into your body, and you actually want to use your anchor arm, and the other one's actually fairly loose. Like there's all kinds of techniques if you study or look into that. A lot of believe it or not, a lot of the tactical guys that like shoot on the move have the best anchor and form for shooting like off, like freehand like that. You know what I mean? Like not in a fixed position.
Yeah, but I gotta work on it. But the point is that usually with a deer, you know, in my mind, with a bullet, there's a big enough area right there.
Paper plate, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if I'm off by like 2-3 inches, then I never really feel like, oh God, I'm like so worried. Whereas with an arrow, like with a crossbow, I have always been very careful to like be a lot more precise. Like the last deer that I stalked with my crossbow, I shot right through the heart. And still ran like, I don't know how, like 100 yards.
Yeah, if you get both lungs, a deer's not going to go 100 yards.
Oh, really?
No. They suffocate. It's impossible. Like, I mean, 60 maybe. I mean, 100 maybe if you nick a lung and you hit another one, you know what I mean? But like if you go through and puncture those lungs, they collapse. There's zero air. They're basically running on what they have.
Okay.
The heart, they have to bleed all the way out, right? Like,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's why the tracker guy says, he's like, all these guys aim for a heart. He's like, just double lung them.
Yeah.
Double lung them. That was his email for a long time, is double lung them.
So I know we only have a few more minutes because it's just like a weekly update, or at this point
we'll talk about the stub stack on the next one.
Yeah. Oh, you want to talk about it on the next one? Okay. All right. That sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was thinking if we keep doing them like this, we could call it our fortnightly update.
You're such a dork, dude. You play Fortnite too?
No. Fortnightly means every 2 weeks. It's like a British way of saying.
But it wouldn't be every 2 weeks. It would actually be weekly.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying I'm saying that we haven't done one in a couple weeks.
Well,
So
that's
it's like
because we did a full episode that was a weekly update.
Oh,
You forget.
correct.
The squirrel
Yeah.
swamps, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Squirrel swamps and
Okay.
snares. I think.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's our update, man.
All right. So if anybody wants to reach out to us for episode corrections or comments, concerns, anything that they want to maybe know further in detail, or maybe a guest that they want on the show, they can go to Clay_Bowers and slide into those DMs on socials, or go to publiclychallenged.com and contact us.
Yeah.
And with that, folks, we leave you.
See you guys next time.